right, thank you. And then we're going to do the thing, whatever the thing is. All those things and then some more things.
Well, okay, this chair is way too low.
Yeah.
I'm not going to sit
You
down
want
here
to
and
help?
look up.
Do you know how to get it up?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
See, they used to do this when I was in Hillsborough Auditorium. You're sitting up there on the dais. Your chair's too you can see the
Comfy.
So they would put my chair all the way down.
Because they thought it was funny.
When I would sit down.
All right. Good afternoon, commissioners, and over to you, Chair Harrington and Ms. Angie.
Thank you, Clerk Moss. For those of you who are attending by Zoom, I'm waving my hand, so there I am. And you are joined here. This is Chair Catherine Harrington, and we'll have everyone do introductions. But I thought I would start by introducing the folks who are joining us tonight but by Zoom. So we have Forest Grove City Councilor Angel Falconer, Tualatin Valley Water District Board Member Carl Fisher, Mayor Lacey Beatty from Beaverton, and Christian Salgado from Hillsborough City Council. And here in the room, if you wouldn't mind.
Sure, I'll pass the mic around. So
Oh, we have a mic. All the better.
I'll be the MC.
Okay, so Ms. Angie's going to walk a mic around so those of you on Zoom know who's in the room with us.
Maureen Wolf, Tigard Council President.
Iken Hu, Tiger City Councilor.
Brian Schimmel, Forest Grove City Council.
Karen Martinez, Forest Grove City Council.
Michelle Waring, Assistant Finance Director, City of Hillsborough.
Suzanne Lenine, CEO. What am I?
CFO.
I'm now the CEO. Thank you. City of Hillsborough.
CFO, Suzanne.
Glad she didn't say mayor.
Hi, Marnie Kyle, one of the Assistant County Administrators.
Ann Ober, one of the Assistant County Administrators.
We also have Frank Bubenek, who's joined us by Zoom. He's the mayor of the city of Tualatin.
Grace Zarpak, Staff Assistant to Chair Harrington.
Hi, everyone. I'm Maida Pula. She, her. I'm Staff Assistant to Commissioner Pam Treese and Commissioner Jerry Lilly.
Bryn Thomas, they, them, Staff Assistant to Commissioner Snyder and Commissioner Fye.
And Commissioner Treese is on vacation right now. Go ahead. You guys have mics. Introduce yourselves, please.
Jason Snyder, County Commissioner.
Jerry Willie, County Commissioner, District 4.
Rafisa Fye, County Commissioner, District 1, and I see cities, cities together.
Great. So this is an opportunity for you to be on the journey with us with regard to the process that we're going through, and especially Ms. Angie and all of the staff, to bring forward to us a proposed balanced fiscal year 25-26 budget. Next slide.
Brenda, not me.
That's okay.
I forgot I wasn't in control of the clicker. So I will go ahead and introduce myself. My name is Tanya Angie, and I have the pleasure of serving as your county administrator for Washington County. And seated next to me is...
Hi, I'm John Steyer. I'm the interim chief financial officer, Washington County.
John Steyer, I got it wrong last night. We held a similar session with our budget committee, and I said John has been with the county for 8 years, but it's actually been 6. He's made such an impact within the county. He was actually within our sheriff's office. John has a deep history within finance and actually managed budgets at the federal level for NATO and the Pentagon. So there's some really interesting stories that John can share.
Just for one more second, also on Zoom we have Felicita Monteblanco, one of the board members for the Tualatin Hills Park and Rec District. So we have 2 of our service districts in the House. John Campbell from the City of Hillsborough, and Elizabeth Case, City Councilor from the City of Hillsborough as well. Take it away, Ms. Angie.
Thank you. On the screen is our agenda overview for this evening's conversation. Next slide. So first I will touch just a brief background on the county services, the role the county plays as a local government service provider, and strategic plan. Next slide. So the county is different than cities. The county is actually an agent of the state. So our service portfolio is made up of their state-provided services, then there's state county-provided services, and county provided services. Within the state county provided services, some of those are funded by the state, some of those are partially funded by the state, and some are unfunded or even underfunded within those categories. We have continued to see an increase of unfunded or underfunded mandates at the county, which has caused greater pressure on our general fund as our community demographics in population and just needs of our county have increased. Next slide. This is a pictogram of county services. It's a great overview. I'm not going to spend time on this. This is in the publicly available packet, which is posted on our website. It just shows the vast array of services the county provides. And these services impact people's daily lives throughout our amazing county. Next slide. The next two slides are slides directly from our budget book, which provide an overview of the structure of the county. The county has our elected Board of Commissioners, who 4 of our 5 commissioners are here this evening, and they are responsible for the governance and policy setting of the county. We also have an elected county performance auditor, district attorney, justice of the peace, and our sheriff. Appointed by the board are myself, who serves as county administrator and budget officer, and county counsel. Under my direct report includes our assistant county administrators, chief equity inclusion officer. Not listed on here are others such as John Steyer, our CFO. Next slide. The next slide shows the vast array of differing departments, service areas, offices that we have within the county. These offices and functions are funded by discretionary funds, which is primarily general fund revenue, which equates to property taxes and fees. We also have programs and services funded by special funds or special, and I was joking last night with our budget committee. I've always said special different checkbooks, but no one uses checks now, so I don't know if it's Venmo accounts or Cash App accounts that we need to evolve our language to. But in essence, those funds can only be used for those special purposes. Some examples include grants from state and federal government for affordable housing, public health, transportation, construction projects. And then we do have several voter-approved specific purpose funding. We have our Washington County Public Safety Local Option Levy, our WCCLS, or Washington County Cooperative Library Local Option Levy. We'll talk a bit more about those later on in the presentation. Metro Affordable Housing Bond, Metro Supportive Housing Service Tax Revenue, and we do have area-specific districts that cover our urban unincorporated areas, and those include our Enhanced Sheriff Patrol District and our Urban Road Maintenance District. Next slide.
I really like that last slide because it helps me understand the structure of the budget a little bit.
So now we'll briefly go into history and context. Next slide. This used to be my favorite slide. It's not my favorite slide anymore. I really don't know what to call it at this point in time. What this slide depicts is the impacts Measure 5 and Measure 50 of setting the permanent rate. In the yellow bars, and let me see if I can use the arrow so those online can hopefully see. The yellow represent our permanent rate that was established. As you can see, Multnomah County is set at $4.34. Clackamas at $2.98, and Washington County at $2.25. When the permanent rate was established, the board established a policy at that point in time to honor the serial levies that were in place. That was MSTIP and WCCLS. So of that permanent rate, approximately 90 cents is transferred to MSTIP fund and also to libraries. That means that the county general fund discretionary funds are approximately $1.35 to operate. So we're operating underneath that dashed line. When I gave this presentation to our during our all-employee meeting, I stressed how proud I am to serve as county administrator and how proud I am of our employees delivering excellent services each and every day under a constrained property tax revenue system. We do have voter support, though, to help subsidize that rate through the WCCLS levy and also public safety levy. You see that within the blue bar on this graph. However, our rates are still well below our other tri-county partners. What's also interesting during this time is the property tax growth. Multnomah, between 97 and 2024, Multnomah County has grown by 37%, Clackamas by 53%, and Washington County by 59%. So that puts an even greater stress on the property tax system that we're working within. Next slide. So this is your property tax dollars at work. As a county, we are responsible for, in essence, being the tax collector, which includes appraisal of properties and collecting property taxes and distributing to all of our local taxation districts.
64 of them.
Yes, 64. Of each dollar we collect, the county retains 16.3 cents of that dollar. You can see on this graph, the special levies are also broken out within that blue bar. Next slide. So I will not be talking about total budget this evening. I will only be focused on the general fund specifically. So within our general fund, and this is this current fiscal year's breakout of general fund, as you can see, the primary areas of general fund expenditures include public safety and justice at just over 43%, and then MSTIP, or Major Streets Transportation Improvement Program, at 14.7%. We have our libraries, 6.7%. Housing and Health and Human Services, land use and transportation, which is primarily additional funds to road maintenance and land use and transportation planning type activities. Also within this area includes our elections, assessment and taxation, and other general government functions. Next slide. So as a 101, and I know we do have local government partners in this conversation, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about unrestricted versus restricted funds. The county does operate, our budget is $2.1 billion. The primary funds of our county are restricted. We do have a much smaller portion of our funds which are within our unrestricted. So this evening we're talking just our unrestricted general fund funds. Those funds fund law enforcement, justice, so in our sheriff's office, jail, courts, district attorney, assessment, taxation, elections, public health costs that are not paid by the federal or state government, or sometimes we need to have a cost share program in place to receive those funds. Recording and veteran services are also within our general fund. These funds are competitive, and I'm going to connect the competitive nature to the bar graph that I had shown, because we are a growing county, continued unfunded and underfunded mandates. It is getting far more competitive between departments for these funds. Next slide. This is a five-year general fund forecast. This forecast probably has a similar look to your jurisdictions. Every local government that I have worked for, the revenues and expenditures, there's a widening gap over time. So I do want to acknowledge that. Some of our assumptions within our five-year forecast include property tax growth at 4.25%. That could be maybe aggressive in the future as we continue to see construction rates and our urban growth boundary continue to be filled in with development. We also are expecting to see a 4.5% increase within our SIP transfer. We are seeing personnel services at a 6% rate. I will say it feels that that will be much higher in experience with what we are experiencing both within the market from wages as well as health insurance. And then there's, it assumes no significant changes or other variables. So that would be assuming that all things are the same. And I can say that all things are never the same, working in a county through each legislative session and what additional mandates may be required of the county. Next slide. Okay, so as a local government, we have the responsibility to align our organization with our available resources. Next slide. As Washington County, we have been on a journey of general fund right-sizing over the last fiscal years. We continue to be committed to transparency, and that is part of one of the reasons we are here with you tonight to have this conversation. Through the last 5 years, we have right-sized our budget gaps while we've invested in core county services. Some of those investments that the board has made have included investment in technology, our enterprise resource planning system. This is the backbone technology, our finance, HR, payroll, et cetera, system. We currently operate on Oracle. It is no longer supported. It is 23 years old. I have gone through 2 of these transitions in my career, and in each, I have never had an organization that an employee asked, why are we doing this? So from a workforce, also a board, everyone is saying we need a better system. This is a huge lift to transition, and we are doing this with process improvement in mind, as well as modernizing our business practices. We are 2 years into the county's first ever capital improvement plan, which we are proud of. This year, Washington County conducted its first ever facilities condition index, which helps inform future financial planning for minor and major facilities projects. Our facilities, our CIP includes facilities, technology, transportation, and parks. We're undergoing a jail planning study. Our jail is the smallest jail in the state per capita. We currently still have 3 of our pods that are closed. We have significant workforce efforts that are underway. That is a true partnership model between our sheriff's office, county administration office, HR, and support from the Board of Commissioners. We are making progress on the recruitment of jail deputies, and this will take time. For each jail deputy, they require 10 months of training before we see that impact in jail service. The sheriff is expecting that within a 2-year period, we will start to see really that those pods open up and us hopefully getting back to occupancy of the jail. We continue to make workforce investments because we know that retention of employees and also attraction is really important because our employees deliver our services on a daily basis. Next slide. So where have we been? We have been on a journey. I showed the charts of the gaps that we have closed each budget year. So in 21-22, we had a $12 million gap. Each department submitted 2% reduction, so this was an across-the-board strategy. $6 million of general fund resources were saved of staff time that were directed to COVID response. We had a $6 million one-time increase of our SIP transfer to the general fund. We authorized minimal new staff positions and small increase to materials and services. And through that process, we learned more about our departments and also our department budgets. So going into 2022 and 23, we found ourselves with a $31.1 million gap. And this was much to do because the budget for several years was being balanced on one-time funds for ongoing operations. That is not sustainable, and it is not a best practice. This year, we denied new position requests. We postponed, I do need a drink of water, new facilities and IT capital project funding. We froze several vacant positions, and we cut fleet replacement contributions. This is not usually a good best practice to do that, but this was, if you recall, that was during COVID. We had supply chain delays, as well as there were not the vehicles driven that we had previously experienced, so we thought this was a one-time fix that we could play catch up in the following years, and that strategy did prove out right. Next slide. Thank you. So going into 23-24, we really could not anymore use a one-size-fits-all approach, and we needed to be a bit more strategic and surgical in the approach. Departments were asked to submit 4%, 7%, and 10% reductions as we faced a $25.3 million gap. There was no COLA for department and county administrative office leadership, and limited increase to COLA to 3.5% for all non-represented employees. This was well below the market at that point in time. Human Resources was charged to seek a 5% reduction in health insurance costs, which resulted in us adding a high deductible plan, which has proven successful for us having cost containment over our health insurance costs over the last 2 years. We also had a target to manage vacancies of 4 million. That meant reviewing each vacancy and determining if we could hold that vacancy for a longer period of time to realize that savings over a one-year term. I want to highlight that is just a one-time, that is not a sustainable practice moving forward. And we eliminated 22 vacant positions that we were carrying that were unable to be filled that year. We also reduced general fund transfer of MISTIP and WCCLS by 7%. Moving to this current fiscal year, we had a $10 million gap within our budget. Departments were asked to submit flat 3% and 5% reductions. The balancing acts included eliminating or temporarily freezing some of our general fund supported positions. We have gotten away from the practice of freezing and have moved to just elimination of positions. Found ourselves with needing a 5% reduction in the general fund transfer to MISTIP and 7% reduction to WCCLS. We use SIP funds for facilities capital projects and limited duration support for the Housing Production Opportunity Fund. Through these 2 years, fiscal year 24 and fiscal year 25, we have continued to have a focus on limiting one-time funds for one-time purposes. Next slide. So where do we find ourselves this year? Our gap this year is $20.5 million. Our gap for 9.9 million, or the blue portion of that bar on the screen, is due to health insurance increase. Our health insurance renewals cover 2 fiscal years. So the first half of the fiscal year will be experiencing a 10% increase, and then the last half of the fiscal year, we are projecting a 15% increase. Based on our experience level, that still may be slightly hopeful, but we will be aiming for that 15%. The county is one of the very few local governments that do not pay the 6% PERS pickup. We will be moving to in this budget cycle, the county paying for the 6% PERS pickup in lieu of COLA for this fiscal year. We are finding ourselves in our bargaining to have more and more unions coming to the table requesting that we move to the 6% PERS pickup. So we are strategically doing this to help minimize huge spikes within our personnel costs. We've also experienced state-required PERS increase, and then we're all seeing CPI increases, which are just general increases. The other portion is the expiration of the 2005 SIP agreement. So the county has been fortunate enough to have SIP agreements with Intel and Genentech. The SIP agreement with in 2005 SIP agreement expires at the end of this fiscal year. So that means the loss to the county, while it's a gain for all the other taxing districts, is $10.6 million. Next slide. We are not alone in our general fund gap. This is just what has been posted in the media as far as gaps across the state. According to LOC, at least 1/3 of Oregon cities are reporting significant general fund shortfalls, and currently AOC is collecting information on counties statewide. I would say that is similar, if not higher, for counties. And that's just my own opinion based on the information I'm seeing coming in from county administrators. Next slide. Well, this has been a tough multi-year decision-making and just frankly challenging. We are making progress to fiscal sustainability. We continue, as we've discussed, to operate within a constrained property tax system, inherit state and federal unfunded mandates, and we're aligning our ongoing operations with ongoing revenue. With that, we have reduced reliance on one-time funding for operations. That means making the hard decisions today for fiscal sustainability in the future. And we do recognize that we cannot have a one-size-fits-all approach. We need to be strategic as we look forward. As we do, we need to achieve appropriate reserves. I want to say appropriate, and there's a difference between appropriate versus ample. So we are looking to have appropriate reserves. This is challenging multi-year work, and as I said, under the board's leadership, we feel we are on the right path. Next slide, and I'm going to turn it to the chair to talk about the board's established budget principles and priorities.
I want to thank Ms. Angie for working with us, the Board of Commissioners, each and every one of these years. Chuck told me I shouldn't touch the mic, so I will resist. In those slides that she shared earlier about those 4 past fiscal years, they started with that information transparently as she started with us as our county administrator. So we've learned a lot together about the state of the county as a whole and have been both trying to right size while also make the investments. One of the tools that we, the board, have used in collaboration with Ms. Angie is a set of principles and then a set of board priorities. We give this information to her as part of the process for her to develop the balanced proposed budget that she is required to deliver to the full budget committee by the end of April. So here in one slide, we have all of our principles, and we have used this tool for years now. Some of you have seen these principles from prior fiscal years, but each year we fine-tune them to the context that we have. Always we've started with supporting the board goals and governance, but also we have advanced our communication techniques with the public, not only transparently and openly, but this year we'll have more community engagement forums for our community. enhance and evaluate revenue and short, mid, and long-term sustainability. We would rather not be in a cut scenario next year as well. So we've asked Ms. Angie to really take the look, not just for this year, but for the years ahead, and see what we can do this year to help set us up for a better stage next year. But we'll learn more after going through this next fiscal year about those future year assumptions. Honor the continued commitment towards equity. We are a diverse community, and we are going to continue to honor that through our service delivery and our policy making. We are forging ahead as a very diverse community, and we are not stepping back from that, and that includes with our investment decisions through the budget. Objectively evaluate services with a priority on mandated service. This is one of those refinements this year where we're really going to have to focus and make sure we're answering the question of, is this mandated, or have we been doing this because of community need and that we've wanted to? Consider both long-term capital and operating needs. We've been trying to catch up in terms of capital planning needs and capital investments, but we also have to balance that with the operational needs. Position the organization for the future. Ms. Angie talked about our investments in the ERP, in our facility condition index. So we're continuing those efforts. I think we had the same principle last year. Understand service impact on community members' daily lives. That's continuity from last year as well. We know we're in service to the people of our community. We never forget that these services help people. Balance systems of service and continue to pursue a one Washington County approach. This is part of the positive culture that we have tried to foster here, working together. Gone are the days of really siloed departments. There is a lot of cross-collaboration in many different areas of the county. And so they've really been problem solving together. And when I say they, I mean Ms. Angie and her staff all the way down through the employee ranks of our 2,700 employee base. Next, we'll move on, next slide, into our priorities. Thank you. This is one of two. So we have two slides to encompass the set. And this is where we're really zeroing in on guidance to Ms. Angie for that problem solving to bring us the balanced proposed budget. Focus on a financial plan to address immediate, mid, and long-term budget issues. Don't just do it for this year. Help us on that longer-term runway. Operationalize Design the Future and One Washington County, including improving the major systems of county government, such as capital improvement planning, finance, information technology, and HR resources. We've been doing a lot of this infrastructure building block development. We need to finish that work. But we've done some big block development. It's a strong wall, and we're going to keep fine-tuning it. Plan for and respond to emergencies and disasters, including those caused by climate change. Boy, are we going through a lot each and every year. These severe weather events aren't just one-offs from one year to the next. We're having multiple events at different times throughout our year. So we are getting a little bit better at that, and we need to continue to do so. We have great work happening because of our Emergency Operations Center, whether they're operating virtually or in person across our county. Support a connected multimodal transportation system in partnership with the federal, state, cities, and regional partners. So we don't do this alone. We do it with you so that we have a connected system to service all kinds of different travel needs in our community. This board, while Ms. Angie has spoken in prior years about our having to reduce that transfer of the general fund resources over to the MISTIP and WCCLS funds from that historical serial levy permanency, we're committed to try and make sure as much as we can possibly continue to transfer, we do transfer. Value and retain our employees, including training opportunities as we build a financially sustainable organization. Last year, we disinvested, we de-invested in training, and oftentimes there's travel associated with that. That's not sustainable, and we recognize that. And we need to help our employees get better at what they do and stay better at what they do. And so we're committed to ensure that through our adopted budget that we do just that. Next slide, please. Continue the spend down of ARPA funds. Well, we've done really well. We fully obligated all of the funds by the end of 2024. And now we just need to keep operationalizing all of that with community partners through the end of 26. Partnering, boy, we do that so well here in Washington County, and thank you for being our partners, but particularly around protecting public health and behavioral health. And I know a couple of the things that we're looking forward to here in 2025 is the opening of the Hillsborough Recovery Center, followed by the Beaverton Recovery Center, both of those under the umbrella of the Center for Addictions Triage and Treatment. We do not do our work alone. Partnering with the state and region to develop, build, and manage affordable housing and address homelessness. You do this really well in the cities, and partnering with us, not only making sure we continue to build more affordable housing, but that people can stay in affordable housing. So we have more work to prioritize through this budget. Deliver public safety and justice services in a way that builds community trust. We do this each and every day. It's a big year because we have a levy coming up, certainly. But this is an area where the general fund has been under tremendous pressure, and that continues. So believe me, we are down in Salem asking for more resources to continue our efforts. Make sure that the state fully funds the cost rates. It's not an easy task, but we keep doing it because our community deserves it. Proposals for new and expanded services must include new revenue. You bet there are a lot of things we'd like to keep doing, but we can't entertain new ideas unless they're supported by new revenue. And it's important that we continue to document that. Prioritize countywide revenue on countywide services. For those of you who are familiar with our urban unincorporated areas, we've been doing a lot of work with countywide resources, specifically lottery dollars, but those are countywide resources. So we've been really sharpening our pencils on that. The urban unincorporated areas do not pay city taxes. That means they don't get city level services. We do not have general fund resources to continue to do things that were done in the past. Prioritize revenue on county, state shared services. As Ms. Angie highlighted with that diagram earlier, we are an instrument of the state. The state expects us to do a lot of things, and so we have to really focus on those. Lastly, address known budget requirements to deliver mandated services, such as juvenile detention bed shortage and jail staff hiring challenges, just to name two. We have terrific staff. They've been problem solving like nobody's business. And we have their back, and we continue to prioritize these needs. Sometimes it feels like a really long game, and we know that by articulating these priorities, it helps the organization with the tough decision-making that goes into our proposed budget. So towards that end, once we provided that updated information to Ms. Angie and we reaffirmed it as a new board in January, she then takes that direction and works with the departments. Next slide. Back to you, or do you want me to explain it?
No, I've got it. Thanks for the break so I could take a drink of water. I did all these slides last night and I was talked out, I will say that. So with that, once again, the goal to close the gap is 20.5 million. If you do the math, that's about approximately 10 million. And we know that not all of our services departments can be cut at that 10% because of our mandated requirements. Therefore, departments were requested to submit 10, 13, and 17% scenarios. Additional guidance in it that supported the board's principles and priorities is our approach to services going forward, mandated services, even questioning the mandate. What is the risk of not meeting the mandate? Both from the state as well as community risk. We also need to look at our quality of service standards. We are very proud as Washington County employees for the services that we deliver. But we have to look at those standards, and maybe instead of a gold standard, we have to go to a bronze standard or a lower level of service. That means increased maybe wait times, increased delays on cases or other aspects. We have to look at eliminating some programs and services. Continuous staff feedback is workloads are high and also unbearable. And so we have to reduce what we're doing. As public employees, we're not always good at stopping. We're in this work for service. So trying to say no can be hard, and I know many of your local governments also experience that. And we have to explore revenue alternatives. This includes new or increased taxes and fees. Next slide. I mentioned earlier investing in our workforce. Our workforce are the conduit to service delivery. Without workforce, there would not be a Washington County in action. I mentioned the 6% PERS pickup so that we do have time for question and answer. I'm not going to dive deep into this. I do want to just highlight what the fiscal impact of that is. That is 1.6 to the general fund and 4.7 million to special funds. I want to underscore that this is in lieu of COLA for employees this year. Next slide. We have mentioned some of other areas that we are doing to invest in our workforce so they can be in service to the community. That means transitioning to Workday, which is a ERP system, modernizing and creating safe workspaces for employees both while they're working and also while they're interacting with public. Continuing to explore innovative technology to enhance efficiencies. Maximizing the value and use of existing assets, that means our buildings that our employees work within. And the chair had mentioned employee training and career development. Over these past years, departments have gone too far in cutting their training and development. That is all in the best aspect of wanting to be in service and maintaining services to the community. And we need to maintain a workforce to deliver those services moving forward. Next slide. Exploring revenue options. So two current efforts that are underway is replacement of our two existing levies. The first is our public safety levy, which supports our countywide criminal justice system as our population grows. This addresses the resource gaps that our general fund or permanent rate cannot support. Our current rate is 47 cents per thousand of assessed value. The proposal is to increase that to 65 cents per 1,000. We are on track for this to go forward to the voters on November 4th, and I sincerely apologize. Jason was going to cover this slide, and I just kept going. So sorry, Jason. I get on a roll.
Let it slide.
Thank you, Brenda, for sending me the team's note. Jason, you're on the subcommittee. Commissioner Snyder, would you like to make any comments?
Just that you're gonna see, as the county administrator indicated, more reliance on the local option levies as we need to support multiple services that are funded from the general fund, this being one of them. We've already talked about the environmental factors that are at play, both in inflationary pressure and also in population growth. And you will, as she indicated, you'll see this likely on the November ballot. That's where the commission is headed. That will give us one option if we end up not being successful, to try to make sure that we don't have to make very drastic cuts in public safety, and I don't think any of us want to have to do that. Right now, we're in a precarious position. So
I do learn quickly, so I'm going to actually turn it to Commissioner Willie to talk about the next slide, which is the library levy.
No, I wanted to hear what you had to say about it.
You heard it last night.
So Commissioner Teresa and I are on the WCCLS levy renewal committee, and we've enjoyed Lisa and the survey people providing us with a lot of information as to how much support that our libraries provide to the county. And our folks who live here in Washington County love our libraries, and they poll very well. We are looking at currently a 22-cent rate per thousand of assessed value, and we're going to propose raising that to 37 cents. We actually did that in 2 steps. We proposed a 10-cent increase to 32, or a 15 to 37, and they polled almost identically the same. And the reason why is because we, as we all know, providing services, whether it be library services, public safety services, county services, the cost is all going up. We are looking at certainly maintaining our hours for our libraries and moving ahead, and also streamlining some other services so that we can save a little bit of money in that regards. So that's what we're proposing. That again is a November levy, as well as public safety.
Next slide. So we also know we need to look at other revenue sources, because this year-over-year cuts, it's hard on all of you, it's hard on the community, it's hard on our staff, it's hard on the board, it's hard on me. And so we have cut, and one of the phrases I've used is we're at bone or beyond bone. And so we do need to explore beyond these levies, what are the other revenue options. The Board of Commissioners is slated to have their first conversation and work session in May of this year, so that we can start talking about how do we scope this out and what are revenue options that the board would like to consider moving forward. Next slide.
We're close to the end, folks. Yep. And this is where we try different things each and every year. When Commissioner Willie, Commissioner Treese, and I joined the board in 2019, we started expanding the community engagement on our budget with our first ever out in the community engagement sessions. We've tried different things each year, and I'd like to just highlight some things we're doing differently this year. Tonight is an example of that, just like last night with our budget committee. Mayors have asked that we extend our opportunity to ensure that you have more background as to what the context is for the proposed budget before it is released. So hence why we're getting together tonight, to go over some of that with you and also to hear your advanced questions so that we can do a better job moving forward. But we have many different activities going on. The first section, the upper section of this slide, talks about the budget activities specifically, and then the bottom part is about our community outreach and activities. So we have had this board-hosted session tonight. Moving ahead, last night we had a budget committee meeting that went over the same information. We have our budget committee orientation on the 14th, and then drum roll, Monday, April 28th, we all get the proposed budget together. And so we'll be having a forum, much like tonight, where Ms. Angie will once again present her proposed budget and budget message to all of us together. Hope you'll join us. After that, we'll each have a couple of weeks to absorb that, and then our budget committee meetings start on the 14th and 15th, I believe, and that's where we'll be getting presentations from the different departments via our assistant county administrators to help bring to life the proposed budget. Those are public meetings. In the past, we've had public comment during each of those meetings. Anyone and everyone can email questions, and all of that information is gathered. You can see just below where on the 16th, our staff will come back to us and share answers to all of those questions together. Right before that, on the 12th, we're going to have an information session with our community to try and help them both see what the proposed budget has, but more importantly, to hear their questions and answers as well. That's, again, something new. On May 20th, that's when the various Washington County budget committees, so the main portion of the budget and service district for lighting number 1, our combined enhanced sheriff patrol urban road maintenance district budget committee, and then our much smaller North Bethany service district for roads budget committee. All 3 of those will get adopted that day, following a budget hearing with each of those budget committees. From there, it moves just to the Board of Commissioners. So by state law, between the approval and the adoption, there are limitations on how much we can change the proposed budget within, I think, 10% of our overall approved budget. But this year, the board conversations have said, if we've got amendments, we're really trying to discuss those with the budget committee, because there's just a huge volume of work we need to do, and we have really constrained resources. So we're all going to try and do it together. But we'll see how that goes. But by June 17th, at our Tuesday meeting, we'll have that final public hearing and the board adoption. But we're not done from there. Certainly our staff has work to do to deliver that adopted budget to the state as required before, right, July 1st. But also our work as a board is not done to ensure that our community has the opportunity to understand the choices that we made and how our community members might experience those choices. So we have the state of the county coming in the summer. We don't have a date yet. And then after that, we'll have various information sessions for our community. So really that's what was our first crack at giving you more context with regard to what's happening with our proposed budget. So for those of you here in this room, as well as those of you on Zoom, feel free to raise your hand if you're on Zoom. You do the same here. We have a mic to help as well. But what questions might you have for us? It is not necessarily specifically on this content, but what questions do you foresee having that we might consider as we move ahead through that process? Anyone? Go ahead. Tanya's got the mic. And then we'll go to Mayor Beatty after that.
You're mentioning of objective evaluation of mandated services. So that piqued my interest. So do you have any example what kind of mandated service you'll be evaluating?
I don't have a particular favorite one. And actually, I'm blanking out at the moment.
Can you go back to the city or the county state chart? Yep, thank you.
Way back in the beginning times. Almost. There you go.
So one of the examples that I could give is community corrections. So community corrections, the state pays for felony services or cases, but does not pay for misdemeanors. And the county has seen an increase in misdemeanors. We have kept kind of equilibrium between how we serve felony cases as well as misdemeanors. We are mandated to serve misdemeanor, but we're not required to do so at the level. We're also not actually required to have a community correction center. So what that does, though, is that means that it puts a greater strain on the overall public safety and justice system. The Community Correction Center has been proven to reduce recidivism. So if we start to look at whole systems, then that investment makes sense. But we really have to question each service. Another I'll lift up is counties are required to deliver jail services. That's the requirement. How we do that, to what level, is up to the county. Does that mean we want to eliminate our 3 program staff within the jail that help our adults in custody get GEDs? Is that the right choice, or does that actually increase potential recidivism and indicators of success for our community members? So it gets very nuanced because in counties, we say if you meet one county, you've met one county. If you meet one mandate, you meet one mandate. But it's really understanding more of the mandate and what do we really have to do. And those are policy questions for the board. And within each of those, there are community impacts.
There are a couple of different public safety examples we could go into. The law library. Every county is supposed to have a law library. But ours is pretty exemplary in the state for having space, computers, opening hours, things like that, because of the need here, right? But the state doesn't have clear rules on what you have to have. But another one that is closer to home for each of us is assessment and taxation. Our team reviews every property within every 4 years. And at my house, we just did some renovation. And so reno permits also are a source of having that assessment on-site review, which is great. But we're not required to have that level of assessment. There are some counties, some of my colleagues at the county level haven't updated their assessment for 20 years. Can you imagine? Well, so why do we have really a gold standard there? Is because it means that is more recent assessment that helps us. It also helps you. If we're to step back from that level of support, we're biting off our nose to spite our face. It would hurt all of us. So, we have to wrestle with a bunch of these things. Part of what makes going through this analysis difficult is that we don't have a manual from the state or otherwise. So we don't have the ready information that we would all like to have to go through this assessment. We've been trying to build on that, but we haven't gotten as far as we would like. But we're getting closer. And when we have information, you know it's going to be available for all of you as well.
Yeah, just one data point that I'll share is the average value or the average cost of one appraiser at Washington County is $142,000. That's fully loaded. The value that that brings in to the county is $15 million. So that's where the investment is benefiting the whole. And so we do have to look at that investment and weigh, it's good to be the gold standard in A&T. I'll just say that.
Yep. Mayor Beatty, how about you? And Kevin's making sure your mic is on.
I appreciate the opportunity to hear the presentation, and I've been to past presentations, and I would say this one is a lot more thoughtful, a lot more information. So kudos to you and Tanya for putting together this information. I'll start with, I appreciate the thoughtfulness around PERS contributions over COLA. And that's an easy place for the cities and the leadership to get behind the county, because that's a really thoughtful approach to some of the budget criteria. The city's in a similar situation, and our deficit probably ratio to budget size is similar. And we're doing the very same things around, we have a municipal court. Should we operate a municipal court when generally things should be done at a higher level of government? So I would say that we can't do this before we all have to do our budgets, but I'm hopeful in a future to have more collaborative conversations around the city does handle misdemeanors. Can we take on more misdemeanor cases while the county continues to be able to operate more of the felony level cases? So I think partnership is needed for some of these things. Economic development is something cities do, and should a county do it? Does this fall under a service that you guys should be providing when so many of us do it so well? And I know you're having these similar conversations to us, so that's just one that stands out to me as the mayor. I would also just plead as my other hat as a veteran to really, I understand, I know you used intentional language around competing priorities. Oregon is the 51st worst state for veterans to live in. 51st worst state. And we are seeing massive reductions in the federal government to people helping veterans get services. And if we see cuts to county service officers helping veterans get access to their services, it has a de minimis effect to those veterans and the need they have for other parts of the organization. So as you're making these tough conversations, I do think there's a need, particularly around the veteran side, to have more joint conversations with the state and our federal representatives, because the average veteran doesn't know the difference between the Oregon Department of Veterans Affairs, what counties do, and what the VA does. There are some services that are duplicated, but by and large, getting people in the door to get their services is really challenging. And I just plead with you in our competing resource allocation that veterans in the 51st worst state to live in is not one of the first areas we cut. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other folks either in the room or on Zoom? Any questions or comments? Go ahead, Angel. Oops, sorry, I got to Angel before Bruce. Is that okay? Go ahead, Angel.
Hi, thank you. I think you had a slide on there were options under revenue. We had quite a discussion about safety and library levies. I wasn't quite clear on some of the ideas around additional taxes and fees, and I wondered if you might be able to elaborate just a little bit more on what some of those possibilities might be.
Sure. Let me start on that one. I think we've already approved increases in our building and development fees, or I've seen that they've done the analysis before they actually bring us the, maybe it was a work session briefing before.
Correct. The board was briefed in work session of what staff was exploring.
Yep. You know, and there are costs and benefits to everything. But that's the development fees, particularly for developments in urban unincorporated Washington County, as well as for those contracted cities where our county building and inspection departments handle that work. For example, for North Plains, banks, we're going to have to raise those fees in order to have them pay for the cost of service. In past years, we've tried to utilize unutilized reserves to help soften those blows. We don't have those resources anymore, so we have to raise the fees. They need to be cost neutral for us to do that work. Franchise fees, you know, whether it's garbage fees to help pay for not just the pickup, but all the inspection that needs to happen is another potential example. We've got these existing local option levies with the replacements we talked about, but we're looking at what the groundwork is that we need to lay for potential future countywide operating levy, right? A local operating levy that can provide more resources to the general fund. But we have work to do there. That's not going to be something that can be used to solve this current proposed fiscal year. Does that help address your question, Councillor Falconer?
It does. Thank you. I'll look for additional opportunities to learn more about what some of the other updates to other fees. I heard building and development, and I heard that there might have been a conversation, a work session on some other ones. So I'll look for that. Thank you.
Yep. Those activities don't affect your cities because you handle those services within your jurisdiction. Yeah. Councillor Schimmel.
Thank you again. And if Forest Grove is overrepresented, that thanks to Commissioner Willie provoking us on Monday night. So that's why we're here. Well, just acknowledgements, really. I concur with Mayor Beatty's sentiments about the predicament you're in, and also appreciation for how thorough the context you provided, and particularly the principles and priorities, because that's good information for us to take into our budget cycle. So thank you, Chair, for providing this forum and allowing us to weigh in here. And just to echo what our council shared with Commissioner Willie Monday, the MISTIP and WCCLS were really critical budget priorities, or as a priority, retention or preservation of those. But I do understand you need to reconcile that with a very tough situation.
We don't want to reduce levels either. It's a matter of having to versus wanting to. Tough times. Director Monteblanco, what have you got for us tonight?
Well, I also want to echo everything that's been shared. This is really, really helpful, and last year was helpful, and this is even more helpful. So thank you for your transparency and commitment to ensuring that your peers that are on the ground, often answering questions where people don't always understand, like, oh, that's not in my jurisdiction, can explain some of the things happening. But I'm curious what the kind of plan is for outreach for our unincorporated areas. It sounds like there's going to be potential big impact on them, and I'm just curious what that plan is to make sure folks are informed and empowered with information.
Well, we're figuring that out a little bit. Certainly for that May 12th forum, we've been and will continue to utilize our CPO newsletters so that folks know. All of our social media outlets will be advertising all of these opportunities for our community. And then we have great community members who serve on advisory committees for ERMDAC and the advisory committee for ESPD. And then we have the community members who serve on the combined ESPD URMD budget committee. So we try everything we can, but we live in the same world that you all do with your city budgets, where people lead busy lives and they elect us to try and make good decisions for them. So we try, but it's also why we invite questions by email, phone calls, letters. We document them and make sure that we provide answers in documentation and send that out to everyone who sends us a question by email so that they can see not only their answer, but also the other questions too. And we post it on our website. Do you have any other ideas we might try?
Oh, I just wonder about, partnering with community groups, offering interpretation services. I'm a little confused if it's one day or multiple days. I say all this with the full understanding that capacity is limited, and y'all work really hard. I know that the majority of people that go to CPO meetings are homeowners, which is not the majority of people that live in the district or live in the county. So it just, all these things are in my mind. I know there's plenty of people who would never come to a budget session and learn, and will just be frustrated. But I think there's people that, if when possible, with information, can be reflective and offer feedback that is constructive.
Well, I hear your encouragement, right? To keep trying to provide opportunities for folks. So those are great ideas. Thank you for making sure they're brought forward. I really appreciate it on behalf of our full board. Anyone else? I like the idea of getting you out for the rest of your evening. Board members, anything else you wanted to try and contribute? Okay, well, thank you again for sharing your time with us, both those of you who came in person as well as those of you who've spent your time on Zoom. We really appreciate it, and let us know if we should keep doing something like this in future years. Thank you so much and have a great evening. Hope that felt good.
Yes.